Courage to think different, courage to invent, courage to discover the impossible, courage to travel on an unexplored path, courage to share knowledge, courage to remove pain, courage to reach the unreached, courage to combat problems and succeed are the unique qualities of youth. As the youth of my nation, I will work and work with courage to achieve success in all my missions. May God bless you, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Hello, everybody. I'm Srushti Chipde, and I'm back with another episode of the Purple Science Podcast. In the last 2 years, owing to my constant interest in psychom and my hunger for doing something different, I went out and met many people, heard many stories, and it is these stories that truly put me into perspective. It not just made me realize what the actual scenario of the scientific community and the position of science is in India, but also motivated me to make my own way ahead creatively and contribute valuably to the field. And that was the basis of this podcast, more or less. I thought it would be really cool if I can document some of these stories and share it with a larger audience so that we can collectively highlight some of the gaps that exist in the society, but also highlight the small but impactful initiatives that people are taking in various parts of the country. Now, in the last few episodes, we have been very deliberately focusing on students in science, their experiences, their challenges. But this platform is not just for raising questions or highlighting challenges. It's also for having productive conversations and trying to resolve some of these challenges by talking to people who are creatively and consistently contributing to the field. And we'll be doing exactly that in the next few episodes. But coming back, during my engagement with the India Science Festival, and I'll talk about that in detail later on. I met a lot of interesting people, but there was one particular person that I had an amazing conversation with, and she's an undergrad, but so deeply excited about science, about psychom, always energetic, and I saw her passionately sharing about some of our experiments, some of our exhibits with school children, and she continues to do that even now. At that time, my idea for the podcast was really strengthened because I thought that this conversation, this interaction really needs to be documented and shared with many more students, professors, and other people. The reason I love Khushi is because she is not scared of uncertainties and she is so open to exploring. Oftentimes, because of our education system, students are usually limited to their curriculum, to their college syllabus, and they depend on the college for how much and how often they explore. But that's kind of unfair because it is these unique experiences, like the one I and Khushi had in India Science Festival, that really shape us and shape our careers ahead. Let's listen to Khushi talk about some of these explorations that she had in her undergrad days and contemplate about what we can truly do to structure a platform or an environment or a playground for undergrads where they can explore and find their true vigor, find their true talent, so that they don't just do something that they absolutely love, but also do something that they can contribute in a valuable manner to.
So, Khushi, how has
Yeah.
your undergrad degree been so far? Tell us about some of your good and bad experiences that sort of define your journey in college.
Okay, so I have been enrolled in a BSc Life Sciences degree at University of Delhi, Doldram College. And mine was a COVID batch, so graduation started in the online mode. We were enrolled online, and that was a 6 months gap between the board results and the enrollment. So there was a lot of uncertainty. I actually didn't want to take up a BSc course, but I eventually ended up in a BSc course. But after that, it has been good so far. I'm about to finish my undergrad degree. So, yeah, that's about it. I wanted to pursue a course in interdisciplinary education. I wanted to go to ICES or IISc to study further, but I couldn't, clear the entrance examination. So, that's how I ended up here. But, uh, when I came to Daltram College, that turned out to be a very good experience. I met some amazing professors. I was introduced to this professor at a zoology faculty, and she was doing research-based study, an online survey-based study on PCOS. So we, asked her if we could join her, and she said, "Okay, we are willing to take student assistance." So we helped her out there. That's how I got engaged in survey-based research and all these activities. From the beginning, I was interested to, I came with the idea that I want to explore the college life as much as possible. And although the online college was a limitation, but we tried to make the best out of it. So I joined a couple of societies in the beginning. Earlier, I tried to, take up a lot of things. Like I was a part of the debating society. I was engaged in poetry. I was engaged in somewhat social service. I enrolled myself as a volunteer at National Service Scheme, Daltram College chapter. I also signed up for a training program to be a CDF Collective Dreams Foundation Changemaker, where I completed 2 years. So these have been my extracurricular achievements. Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic, Khushi. I know that you are a multitasker, and this sort of clears that. But also, you mentioned that BSc wasn't your first choice and you wanted to pursue something else. But was pursuing the sciences always a first choice, or was there any other plan?
If I were to go back a really many years back in time, then science was not the first choice. I wanted to study mathematics per se, and then after some time, I wanted to become a chartered accountant as well at some stage because my father is a chartered accountant. But eventually, as I grew up, I entered class 10th and 11th. I entered class 10th particularly, and then my teachers were amazing, to be honest. And they introduced me, they taught us science in a manner that I fell in love with it. And in the school time as well, I was going out for, science fairs. I was participating in science quizzes. I made, a couple of science projects. I presented them in exhibits and all. So that also, piqued my curiosity to explore science a little bit more. I met a couple of scientists, like they were engaged with DST at the time and they visited our school. So that's how I got interested in science and I wanted to pursue it in the long run.
That's really great, Khushi. I thought most of us life sciences students share our hatred for mathematics, but it's really good to know that you loved math and then you transitioned to biology, of course.
Yeah, so there has been a thing about mathematics as well. I didn't want to leave mathematics completely, although I got interested in biology, but I opted for a maths plus biology, subject
Mhm.
combination in 11th and 12th. So, and even before enrolling in BSc, I had a misinformation that BSc had a semester. I had a paper in one of the semesters where they taught mathematics to biology students, but that thing was discontinued back in the year 2013, and
Oh,
I unfortunately got the older syllabus. So I was kind of bummed when I got to know that I'll not be studying mathematics in the graduation.
that's interesting. Well, I also know that you've taken a fancy for research early on in your educational journey, as you also described right now. Can you describe your relationship with research and how it has evolved in these 3 years? And also, what questions drive your curiosity the most?
Okay, so again, like my decision to pursue a course in pure sciences and not to go for a professional course like engineering or doctor was influenced by my biology teacher who taught me in class 11th and 12th. So he introduced me to these different courses, like introduced me that there is an institute called AFMC Pune. He told me that there exists IISc Bangalore. He told me that there are people who pursue their graduation in agricultural sciences, which I wasn't aware of. Earlier, I entered in the biology stream with an aim to be a dermatologist. But when I started reading the subject, I, started enjoying it for what it is per se. And I didn't want to, narrow my perspective down while studying a particular subject. So that's how I eventually figured out that I want to, gain understanding of multiple things, and I want to have a open outlook, and I want to explore more. So that's how I came to the picture that, okay, that's what the scientists and the researchers do. They take up a particular question, they chase their curiosity, if something piques their interest, and then they take it further. So that I got into that, okay, I'll become a research scientist, or I'll be doing researches in the laboratory. But when I came to college, so I came with the idea that in the college, I want to take up research projects as an undergraduate, and I want to explore it, that how good I could be at it, or if it is really meant for me. So, as I told you in the beginning, ours was an online batch, so it was not possible for us to visit the lab in the very beginning, or to get in touch with the project mentors or anyone. But we got to do research survey based projects in the college. And then when the first wave was over in September 2021, was the first time I actually visited a science laboratory. So it was the Drosophila Resource Center, which is established in our college, and they do preliminary research with fruit flies, where they habitate them and make their food. They culture them, and then they study the life stages of Drosophila. So I got to know this through the same teacher I was working with, and she arranged a visit for me and a friend of mine. We visited the lab, and we were immediately interested to explore it more. So when the college reopened in February 2022, we went to the lab and we started working over there. We spent around 2 to 3 months. I learned how to make the food for the fruit flies. I even prepared the culture bottles, and I observed them, and that's how I started with it. Then we tried to take up some of the research projects to work individually on, but that didn't turn out to be good. So that has been my experience with research so far.
Super interesting, Khushi. I mean, you remember pretty much of your first experience in lab. Would you like to describe what experiment you did, and more about, how did you feel when you first saw a Drosophila under the microscope? Can you tell us more about that?
So basically, when I entered the lab, I was a kid who first gets excited when they get a new toy. So when I entered the lab, I was like really excited. Okay, I someday I can work in this particular lab, or maybe I'll be the one doing all these projects. Maybe my research would be displayed over here, like other chart papers and everything. So I remember I started with like the basic understanding. We were assigned to come up with our own proposal that what we want to do in the laboratory. So I had access to this compendium of experiments with Drosophila for undergraduates. It's a book published by Indian Academy of Science, and it has around 80 experiments. So we picked out some of the fundamental experiments from there, like identifying the life stages of Drosophila, and how do you differentiate between a male and female Drosophila? How do you prepare the food? So the first thing I did in the lab was actually I learned how to prepare the food. So it's a mixture of corn flour, yeast, sugar, and things like that. We mix them up. We cook it up like we halwa in the kitchen. So that's how the food is made. We made that. We filled the bottles. We transferred fresh flies to it. Then we locked it up. We preserved those. We kept those inside the incubator. We can maintain a particular temperature for them so that they can survive. Then in the next week, we took those flies out. We observed how like different stages of different life stages of Drosophila are visible on the bottle itself. So at the bottom, on the surface of the food block, you see that there are eggs, and then when you move a little upward, you see the first larval stage, then the second and the third, and somewhat you also see the flies flying around in the bottle. So that was really fun to look at, and that were my initial stages. Then we moved forward and we isolated DNA from a pool of flies, from a single flies, and then we run it on a gel to see what the quality of the DNA that we have extracted is. These are some of the experiments that we have done in the laboratory. We couldn't take up a particular research project because of limitation of resources and a lack of support from the administration. But yeah, we have explored a little bit with the flies.
Really nice, Khushi. One thing that is very obvious to me is you love exploring different things. I mean, right from your interest into mathematics to now you were talking about flies, there have been so many things that you've tried your hands at. Do you think it is sort of unfair that you have to stick to one field and then, be formally trained in it? I'm saying if you were given a platform where you could explore a lot of things before deciding on a career. Do you think that would be really cool?
That would have been the best possible scenario, I could say, because I find it most discouraging, to be honest, that we are asked to stick to a particular subject or, leave certain subjects because we need to specialize in a particular field. And that's how the education system is structured. So, till class ninth or 10th, you are allowed to study multiple subjects. You are allowed to, study humanities along with mathematics, science, you are studying literature, you are doing crafts. But as soon as you enter 11th and 12th, you had to pick up a stream from science, commerce, or humanities. And then when you move to college, you need to further, narrow it down to a particular subject from that stream, that what you want to specialize in. Although these could help you in your professional journey, maybe they could help you get a career out of it, because sometimes a professional role requires you to gain a particular level of expertise in a field. But when it comes to someone like me who loves to learn just for the sake of learning, and they're not taking it as something which could end up in a 9 to 5 job or anything, it's really not fair for people like us, because we love learning, and it would be better the more we get to explore, the more we get to bring things together, the more fun we have.
Well, now that you say this, I think the lockdown experience, and of course, it has been the same for me. The lockdown experience has been a blessing in disguise for our educational journeys. And I know that you have an interesting engagement with Vigyan Shala, which I
Yeah.
guess was inculcated during that time. So, would you like to share about your lockdown experiences and, of course, about your engagement with Vigyan Shala? How did you get introduced to the program, and how has it helped shape your career choices?
So yeah, lockdown has truly been a blessing in disguise, we can say that, because the time that I got between my boards and the time I was actually supposed to appear for my entrance examination. So boards ended in March, and my exam was in September. I had this 6 months window between these 2 months, right? So in between these, while I was preparing for NEET, I was also preparing for ICER aptitude test. I came across this communities, online communities on Telegram. There were Telegram channels which were made by students who were aiming for similar programs. They were aiming for ICERs and everything. So we used to discuss certain questions. We used to share practice material with each other, and that's how the community worked. So one fine day, I opened the group chat, and there was this, advertisement about that there is a session happening with a scientist who works in bioethics. And I instantly got curious that what bioethics is, because I never had heard of this term. I didn't know something like this existed. So I immediately was like, I need to listen to her, what she's doing. And that's how I got to introduce organization called the STEM for Girls, with which I engaged for around 4 months, I suppose. And I became an outreach partner. That was my initial interaction with the scientists that happened in the lockdown, which made me explore more possibilities in science, whether it be like biohumanities that I have discussed right now, whether it be combining computation and biology together, how computational biology works, or how the quantum world works and everything. Later, through a similar group, I got introduced to Vigyan Shala. So again, there were like different groups I had joined on Telegram. So one, there was this advertisement that a Kalpana Schiffer STEM fellowship has been released, and they are calling out applications from girl students who are pursuing a BSc degree in any of the fields. So five of us from the same class, we actually filled the form together. And there were like very interesting questions that why do you want to, pursue science, and what are your future aspirations? What are the subjects you are interested in? And there was also a mention of that you'll be assigned different groups, and you get to interact with a mentor, a scientist who is working in a similar field you want to work in. So that also, got me interested, because this is a chance I could get in touch with someone who is where I want to be. So that's how I enrolled with for Kalpana. Initially, I was skeptical that I would get in, but when the call came in, I was really excited to start it with, and it turned out to be the best experience we could have in the online in the lockdown period, because the people I have met through Vigyan Shala, the stories I have listened to through Vigyan Shala, they have helped me a lot on so many different levels, be it professional, be it personal. I sort of developed a private space, a comfortable space where I can, share anything with them. I can reach out if I need help in any matter. So yeah, that has been super helpful.
Awesome. It's really good to know that platforms like these exist, and we as students are able to find them and make the most out of it. So it's great to listen to. I met you at another such interesting platform. We met at India Science Festival. And of course, we've had a lot of fun and in brainstorming and ideating and also executing the festival with the entire team. What are some of your key learnings and takeaways from your internship with Fast India and India Science Festival?
So, like, again, for India Science Festival, I was also excited because, as I mentioned earlier, I have been a person who was eagerly, interested in science fairs and everything. I used to go visit science fairs every single year back in my school days from 8th to 12th. I haven't missed one single edition of Gyan Vigyan Mela organized by Vidya Bharati because that was the annual science fair we used to have in all the Vidya Bharati schools. So I used to go for a science exhibit or a quiz and anything. So when I got to know that I could be a part, I could provide a similar experience to the upcoming generation or to the students that are coming in, and I can make them interested in science by working for this festival, I was eagerly interested to explore it more. And that gave me exactly that. So one of the best moments that I had at ISF was when I was organizing the workshops, I came out to fetch more participants, or just for some reason I came out in the main area, and there was this group of students came with Teach for India fellowship fellows, and they were second grade students, and they were not introduced to science so far, because in first, second, third class we study EVS and we do not study science as a cross subject. They didn't know what cell is, what atom is, and everything, but they were just excited with what's happening all around, and they were curious to know. So there was this one girl who noticed my t-shirt and who noticed that there was a quote written on my t-shirt which said future is now, and she asked me what it does mean. So that's how I somehow saw a reflection of myself in that, because I used to do the same thing. Whenever I used to visit something, I used to ask what's happening here, or why is that written over there. So I was like, I wanted to talk with her more, and so we started chatting. We discussed what future is now means, and then I gave a tour of the entire place to them. That was probably the best experience I had over there, because I got to see, the future that the person behold, and I got to see a person get interested in science. I knew that they would take it further and they would do it. That has been one thing. But other than that, again, the people I've met over there, I met some of the great scientists in India, be it Dr. Karishma Kaushik, Dr. Chandana Basu, be it science communicators like Dr. Ipsa Jain, or be it entrepreneurs, CEOs. So the people who were there, they were very much inspiring, and the vibe that you get here, you see science coming together in all different forms, be it art, literature, core academia, experimentation. So yeah, it was just lovely to look at.
Beautiful. So, since you've been a part of India Science Festival, I think you've also explored the field of science communication and taken a liking for it. How do you see science communication evolving over the years, and what do you like about the field the most?
So, science communication as a term, I was introduced to this again in the first year. It was through again a speaker session. Earlier, then I didn't know that all these activities that are being organized around me are a part of science communication. But when I deep dived into it, I got to know that okay, there is an emerging field called science illustrators, and science communicator is a professional field. I was like, okay, that's something fascinating, because you get to combine maybe your communicating skills or your love for speaking or your love for sharing information along with your love for science. I also studied mass communication back in my school days. So there always used to be something like, why can't we bring these things together? Because I remember my father told me when my 12th class result came out, I scored highest in mass media and I scored around somewhat less in biology. So he asked me, why don't you pursue your graduation in mass media? That's where you seem to be doing better. And why do you want to go to biology? I said, okay, mass media cannot give me a nice career, but biology, I'm interested in. It could give me a nice career. That's why I want to go ahead with this. So that was the answer I gave. But had I known that something like this existed back then, I would have told him that, okay, I'll be combining both of things together and I'll be working in a similar field. So there would be an average of the both scores I'm doing, and that would be reflecting through the career I'll be building up. So yeah, science communication has gained a buzz around these days. There are multiple initiatives taken by the government, they're taken by public institutions, private institutions, colleges, and everyone. So yeah, it's helping out students to expand their horizon a bit and come out with solutions, how they can bring actual science to the society and how they can use the learnings, use their scientific aptitude to actually eradicate some of the crucial problems of the society, be it poverty, hunger, discrimination, stereotyping, and everything. And I want to explore it a little bit more and do the whatever I can do to make an impact.
See, of course, you love to interact with people. I am very well aware of that, especially with kids. Did you see and do you see an appetite for science and science communication in the general public, or let's say the non-scientific community for that matter?
Non-scientific community, those people who are, very much rigid with their fields, whatever subjects they're pursuing, they are a bit reluctant to scientific knowledge in the way we want to deliver it. So they might not be interested in, reading out research papers or reading about it, how a person is trying to understand how a particular component in a cell works. But if you tell them similar thing, you explain the research in a matter that how that component, ongoing research on that component could help us devise strategies to cure a particular disease. Maybe it could be something as common as diabetes or something like heart problems. Then they get interested in it because it's something that's related to them firsthand. So science is conveyed in a manner, it is shown as a very isolated field which is meant just for academicians and scientific community because they understand the jargon, they understand what's happening in the academia world, they understand what are the terms involved. But if you want to take to the public, you need to bridge the gap by explaining to them that what we are doing, how is it relevant to you, how does it impact your day-to-day life. For example, earlier, if someone used to tell other person how these toxic materials used in mobile phones and everything, lead and all these chemicals are harmful to the other person, they might not understand it because it's very complicated for them to understand or to comprehend. But now there has been awareness programs around pollution and everything. Now they understand because they're drinking that water and that water contains that particular chemical, so it's directly going to them. Now they understand why is it important to have a proper plan to treat waste and use certain sort of enzymes and chemicals, artificial generated chemicals, and why there is a need to invest more in research around these areas. Then they understand it. So the idea is we have not been communicating science properly, but now the scenario is changing and we are trying to bridge that gap. We are trying to take out innovative ways to take this to the public. So yeah, it's still a long way to go, but yeah, we are moving in a positive direction, in a forward direction.
Very nicely said. You are now about to start a new phase in your life and career now that you're graduating. What are some plans that you have, or maybe some questions that no one answers, or any challenges that you're facing? Can you tell us about your journey of this transition?
So yeah, I earlier was very focused that I want to build up a career in core scientific research and academia. I used to picture myself sitting in a laboratory working out experiments and everything. But in the last 3 years, my perspective has changed and I got to understand things a little bit better. And now I'm planning to move into the area of science policy and administration. How do we devise strategies? How do these ethical committees are formed? How do they work out these policies and everything? And then how then they do communicate it with the general public. Then there is additional interest that I have been exploring, which is about the scientific contexts which are persistent in the Indian society. So my father has been telling me a lot of stories since the childhood. So this month we were discussing about the 1947's era. We were discussing about how British came into India and everything. And then he made a comment, Khushi, just tell me if there has been any new drug which has been invented anywhere in the globe after 1947. And I can bet you on this that you won't find any new drug being discovered or being invented, because what they are doing now, they are building on the previous research and nothing new is happening. Because all the reference points that they had were from the Asian literature that we had in India. These were from the, long back Vedas and everything. these were the chemicals they derived their references from. And now that they don't have access to the literature directly, they are not here exploiting us, they don't have anything. So there has been a belief in the people who are native to this country that the literature of this country, be it the Vedas, the Upanishads, the scientists that we had, be it Sushruta, Charak, the literature that they have drafted, they contained solutions to everything. And I sort of started, believing it when I started exploring the research myself. So this one instance that I got to know, I recently was studying an article from Atharvaved, which had mentions about the ozone depletion and the probable causes of ozone depletion. Of course, they didn't mention CFCs and everything because those terminologies were not used back then, but they had, references that this could happen after these many years, or there is a protective layer that's out there which protects us from the harmful sun rays. So I want to explore it a little bit more, that how, the science, modern science has developed from the Asian literature, or where has the references come from, or where we are leading, so that I can implement, I can relate to the public a little bit more. Because when talk to them about how there have been many things that we use at home which have a scientific meaning but none of us know about. So if we could understand that better and use it to the best use, that's what I want to explore more and bring it to the general public. So I'll be trying to explore this in the upcoming 2 or 3 years. I'll try to read more literature. That's the short-term plan. Let's see where it goes and how we, progress with it.
It almost feels like if, the more we keep talking, the more we'll find new things about Khushi. There are so many interesting things that you do and that you want to explore. Now that you talk about these stories, what do you
Yeah.
think of history of science in India? Have you been introduced to it formally in college, or where else did you hear it from, apart from your dad, of course?
Unfortunately, we are not being introduced to the history of science in India, particularly through college. There's no mention of it in the Indian in the curriculum. We do study about certain discoveries that, for example, biotechnology came in picture. So, who was the first one who devised the entire technique and everything? But we do not talk about how science came to India. There is nothing, no chapter, no, nothing like that. But there are a couple of conferences, one of which I was a part of recently, which do encourage such kind of studies. And again, given that India is celebrating the 75 years of independence, we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So there has been a push by the government to, deep dive into the history of the last 75 years, how we have developed in different sectors and how we have grown so far, what are the policies that we have taken up, what are the future plans we have. So yeah, that's how by reading these articles, by reading opinion articles, pieces from different people, maybe it could be a person, it could be a scientist who get interested, or it could be through these conference briefings, I got introduced to history of science. And of course, there has been a couple of professors as well. The one I recently worked with, Dr. Anju Jain from zoology department of my college. She is teaching us a paper this semester. She is from Hyderabad. So when I came back after my Hyderabad ka 1 week, she asked me why did I miss the last 2 classes. So I told her I was in a city for this particular event. When I told her the experience I had, immediately she got very interested to know more. That she seemed proud that I took up something not conventional and I went out for this and everything. Then she asked me if I will be interested in presenting a paper in this upcoming conference. She asked me to pick a topic, and they had multiple topics. They had topics around entrepreneurship and science. They had topics around biotechnology. They had topics around, again, AI and everything. And then there were these two topics. One is about promoting science through NEP 2020, and the other one was, again, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, celebrating India's scientific heritage. So when I saw that, I decided that I want to take it up. And then when I completed my topic, she told me that this is what I wanted to take up, but I didn't want to, tell you this. I wanted this to come from you. And when you told me that you want to take this up, that was like, okay, she understood what I wanted to, present in the conference. And there are still professors, there are still nice professors who try to increase a thirst for knowledge, a thirst for answers to the questions that probably nobody asks. Nobody ask where things have come from. They just go about how we can make it better, or how we want to probably incorporate tech in every possible other way. But we do not talk about the consequences. So yeah, the teacher and the society plays a major role in that, I believe.
I think you have this great quality of picking up on all the values and the good things that your professors give you, which is great. And I'm really glad that you are exploring so many things. Throughout your undergrad, you have been exploring so many interesting things. But this is something I like to ask everybody who comes on this podcast. If you had the experience that you had now and you were to relive your undergrad days again, what would you do differently, Khushi?
There's not much that I would like to change, because had I not been through that journey, I wouldn't be me right now. I wouldn't be where I am today. But still, like, there was this project that we took up, and it was a bit of a hurry. We, tried to deep dive into it because we didn't analyze the situation well. We were very naive at that point, I would say. So had I known that sometimes your excitement for a certain thing can end adversely, and it could affect your mental and physical health as well in certain matters. So I would ask myself, maybe the first or second year undergraduate Khushi, to be a little more patient while taking decisions and think twice before jumping into anything.
That's all for today's episode. I'm sure that just like Khushi, there are many more undergrads who are willing to explore and learn for the sake of learning. All we have to do is structure a platform, structure an environment for these undergrads, which is more flexible, so to speak, and open to constant experimentation and boundless creativity by these students. If you have any such ideas, or if you already are working on such creative methods or tools, do let us know. We'll be more than happy to discuss it on or off record and collaborate on such initiatives. Thanks for tuning in to the Purple Science Podcast. We share stories every Tuesday. Our inbox is always open for your feedback, and our DMs across all social media platforms linked in the description are open to your unique stories. If you know somebody who might benefit from this, do share the podcast with them and spread the joy of learning.